This week's episode of Chapters Over Coffee, we're on chapters 21 through 25. We have now retrieved Hayden, and Madra's losing her mind. And Zilvaren meets darkness for the first time in who knows how long. So let's get into it. Not much happened in the first chapter, but the last chapter we ended up with Fisher and Sarah sitting by the fire at the huntsman's cottage. Now he was waking up to what he thought was rain, but it was actually sand sliding off of the roofs. So he realizes that he's still in Zilvaren. He was remembering a time that he had punched a pirate named Jackin Prost. Prost. All right. So when he punches the pirate, Fisher ends up shattering his bones in the process, and it had taken a full week to heal, but he still had a dull ache weeks after. But now the broken hand that he had gotten, from punching the wall where Joshin was completely healed. Had the dagger tattoo still on his left leg or his left calf. So when Carrion comes out of his room, he noticed Fisher's hand was no longer swollen because I guess it was extremely bad the way what?
I got mine.
Okay. It happens. um Fisher
Okay.
explains or tells him the truth that he had believed that Saris healed him in his sleep. So that's when Carrion points out that that was why he had smelled like sex, so he can completely smell them on him. And then he went
Which
on to
is
say,
insane because it was
yeah,
dream sex. Like,
I
freaking
know,
crazy.
yeah. He then went on to say how it was injustice because Fisher got to have a dream about his girlfriend and get healed while he had a dream that he was turned into a goat.
Yes. Yep.
Carrion was also covered in what Fisher said looked like some kind of pox. Now, I took this as him joking around with Carrion, and because he's like, what kind of pox? And he was just like, from doing dumb shit with your dick. Like, I'm assuming that was
Yeah.
just him like messing with him, and it was just from all the scorpion stings that he had gotten. I thought that was hilarious. Carrion then gives Fisher some clothes to change into because there was blood on his. Fisher just wanted to use his magic, and but Carrion brings up that they may encounter guardians today, so Fisher should save all the magic that he can save. So Fisher goes into Carrion's room to change, and he notices all this like paper on the wall. One of them caught his eyes. Carrion was drawing pictures of his parents, mostly his mother, half drawings of his father, and then pictures of the Winter Palace. Eventually, Carrion comes back in and thought that Fisher was going to think of him as pathetic or obsessive, but Fisher just handed them back and was like that he just told him that he saw a man longing for a place and people that he never knew and that he should take them home with him. So I love that he considered the Winter Palace to be Carrion's home, even though Carrion really hasn't been there. And no matter how much he dislikes Carrion, like he did call it his home for him. And he kind of understands. He doesn't have both of his parents either, so he understands that like why Carrion's doing what he's doing anyways and drawing those pictures. All right. Now we're jumping to Cyrus's point of view when she's waking up and realizes that her dream with Fisher was more than what it was. She still has the puncture wounds in her thigh. And then as she's leaving the room, she thought she was going to head straight to the library. Laura stops her, who immediately also smells the sex on her and smells Fisher. And he takes it that when she explained her dream, he just thought she had a wet dream, even though she smells like him. He's never heard of that happening to somebody that has a wet dream that they come out smelling like their partner. So Lorith riles her up to go get her to train with him while everybody in this palace was still sleeping, mainly Foley, since she wanted to go to the library. He was still sleeping. And Lorith did point that out to her. Now that she had rest, though, she notices that her reactions are faster. She knew where Lorith was going to be 3 seconds before he was there, and she was a lot stronger now that she finally had that rest that she needed. Lorith brings up that if she can do this with a staff, then just think what she could do with Solus. So she used this opportunity to ask how attached Fisher was with it, since it was Fisher's father's sword. She has plans to change it, which I like that because everybody else's sword was remade for them. So it only fits that she gets something that fits her
Yeah,
rather
and I
than his
definitely don't
father's.
think that I don't think Fisher would have an issue
Oh, no, no, no.
making it more accustomed to her and stuff, being able to wield it.
Like, he knew it was his father's, but he wasn't around that sword. Madras had it for however long, so he hasn't
Yeah.
been around it. So I don't think that he was gonna care at all. But she did have plans to change it because it was meant for a full-blooded Fey warrior, and she's not that. So later that day, she had planned to talk to her sword and consider what options she had for herself. So then we're going to jump, and she's entering the library. She tries to make friends with one of the stargazers, but fully put a stop to it because while they were paper birds may seem harmless, they can be hazardous at the same time. He explained to her that they like to steal strands of people's hair for their nests, nothing wrong with that. But if a witch gets a hold of that hair and uses it for witchcraft, it could be bad for that person. Because the birds, for one thing, were pure and too trusting. They had no concept of right or wrong. So if somebody's gonna ask for something, they're just gonna go with it. And later on that we learn that they cannot leave the library because if they do, they lose the magic that they are and
Yeah.
die. And I want to know what it was trying to tell her. Like, what was it trying to get her attention for?
Mm-hmm.
There was a reason. The whole time that Cyrus is working in the library with Foley, she hates it. She hated it because he was setting her straight. She thought she had the basics down, but Foley had to let her know that she did not, and it was not that simple like she thought it was. Because whereas Cyrus was forcing her magic to obey, she needed to develop a partnership with the give or take and understanding, and she thought she could just demand it. And later on, oh, I have it later. I'll wait to say that because I have it further down. But everything that he had her read, she thought was simple nonsense made for a child. But at the same time, he made her feel like she was stupid and didn't care that she never grew up around all of this. And like, I see her point on that because she never knew she had powers for one.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't know they were made to believe that there was no magic in Zilvaren. So she's not gonna know. Like, she may have an inkling of something special, but she's not gonna know. So she did make the statement that she would practice in the forge for an hour when she went, but he's like, you better make that too. And I noted that, she may not have liked the interaction, but it was needed. Their interaction was needed. He needed to set her in place because otherwise she was going to half-ass it and hope everything worked out. And we get a look at that later on in the forge when Hazarax shows up.
Yeah.
During the whole interaction, Lorith, on the other hand, was still on guard. He still may have considered Foley a friend and brother, but he was very protective of Sarah. So every time Foley moved, Lorith would lay a Vizieth near, like he was keeping Foley from doing anything stupid. We do get a little more on Foley's past, how he wanted to leave the place, but he didn't know how he was supposed to go back when he had become the one thing that the Lupo Parolia despised and were killing So he didn't think that they would accept him. So Cyrus got fed up of this pity party and brings up that how everybody was writing to him and how Fisher commanded him to come home, but he never receives anything. And he seemed like he pretty much acted like they were lying to him, like he didn't want to believe that none of that happened. So Laura speaks up and tells him, hey, me, Ren, Fisher, even Dania had written him, and that they would have figured something out for him to be home with his family. This pisses, like, their interaction pisses Cyrus off or makes her frustrated. So she's um lets him know, hey, the letters probably got intercepted and stolen, just because she knows how how Malcolm was towards Fisher.
Yeah.
So she's like on to something there. So while she's going off on Foley, her hands start to glow. So this kind of makes me wonder, can her emotions, like when she's worked up, can we pretty much say that um doesn't help her when her temper kind of spikes and she lets
That's exactly the
emotions
vibe I picked up on.
until she can fully seal them and get a handle on them, like, and we kind of learn like about emotions and powers and like the magic stuff in the Lightlark series. So it kind of goes hand in hand. Like, you shouldn't use emotions to help with your powers. Nothing ever comes good out of it. But this did give Foley a chance to check her runes out. There was one that was inflamed. It looked like an arrow bisecting a circle. And one of the most important alchemical symbols, it was the symbol for the Quicksilver Sentient. It pulls power to it, and Foley states that from what he's learned, that the Quicksilver rune has always been the hungriest and the first to awaken. And then the next one was her alchemical shield rune, but he states he's never seen one this intricate before. Intricate before. So that's where that one ends. Now, first off, holy shit with this next chapter, because everything that happens in this chapter after we finally get Hayden, we get a little bit of action. Not a whole lot, but it was just something. We at least get a little bit of something. And I did find a few editing mistakes. So we'll get into that as well. At least one of them really stood out to me. But we start off with Carrie and Fisher trailing Hayden. So they haven't retrieved him yet. But I don't know how we went from Carrie's house to now trailing Hayden. Like, the last interaction was them in Carrie's bedroom, and now we're on Hayden's tail. So, like, something we didn't get the in between. As they're following him, Carrie jokes with Fisher about growing on him because Fisher had used sarcasm on him, and sarcasm was a form of humor. But during the interaction, Carrie loses sight of Hayden. But if Fisher did know where he was going, because he relied on the scent being similar to Cyrus, so we can confirm that they are fully siblings and that she wasn't just like miraculously there because of the gods.
Yeah.
Like, they
A
are
whole
actually
Buffy the
siblings.
Vampire Slayer thing where like Dawn is just there and then her mom dies because
Yeah.
Dawn is there. But like Buffy just wakes up one day and has a sister.
I just still don't understand. Is Hayden supposed to be Fae? Why is she Fae? He not? Like, how did the god just say, okay, she's gonna be the one to have this non-Fae baby now?
Well, she was
Like,
supposed to be. Well, I guess. I
you
mean,
see what I'm saying?
gonna we're just
Because,
gonna pluck her out of being all Fae right away, and we're just
but
gonna
wouldn't that make
throw her in
Hayden?
the third and like, oh, you seem like a good mom. Not
Yeah,
necessarily. I mean,
two
I don't
different
know.
gods, maybe. But then that would only make her half Fae. She's supposed to technically be full Fae. The gods just took that
She's
from
not
her.
any Fae.
So
She's not any Fae
that's what I'm
because she
saying.
was
Like,
born to her
but she was
mom.
supposed to. She was supposed to be Fae, but the gods took that from her to prevent her and
Yeah, I
Fisher
don't know.
meeting. So I'm so confused on like the familial line there. Like,
Yeah.
that's a little confusing. Next thing you know, Karen's still talking to Fisher, but Fisher has to like move him out of the way because Hayden's jumping out of the side street stabbing him. So Karen confronts Hayden on where he gets the knife. Hayden explains, that Sarah's had hidden them all over the city because you never know when you'll need them. And she did some shady stuff. So, of course, she's going to have
Can
her
we also
stashes.
point out, finish that thought.
No, that's it.
And I don't know if this was implied in like book 1 and I just missed like a comment, but Carrion prefers his men and women, his women and
Oh,
his
yeah, it was
men
implied.
prettier than him.
It was implied that he'll swing both ways.
I couldn't remember if we like had an issue or an incident, not an issue. An issue is not the word I'm looking for. Like a moment like that in the first book where he
But
made
I
comments about
think
his men and women.
but I think he's more women. I don't think he minds like another guy being
I
there, but I
think
think
he's
he's
all about it.
strictly
It doesn't matter where it comes from.
carrying though, so Hayden calls Kingfisher a traitor. He knew exactly who Fisher was by name, but before he could elaborate anymore, he turns and wanted to know where Carrion had been because Carrion was supposed to come check back on him after the day after he last saw him with supplies. Because last thing we knew is that Carrion had set him up in a good place. And then he was supposed to also give him word on Saris. He then goes on and on about the Guardians next and then states that they were handing things out, which turns out to be a wanted poster for Fisher, or in this case, who they named the Butcher of Zilvaren. And you got Madra, who's hiding in her palace behind whatever magic or demon she has been
Yeah.
telling people that he used magic to break into the palace and that he murdered a bunch of people, ones that were supposed to be pardoned and released from the cells. Bullshit. Hayden then accuses Fisher of killing Saris by slitting her throat because she was one of the ones being pardoned. Apparently, they drug her body through the third, showing everyone. But here's the kicker. Hayden admitted to not seeing her face. He only saw drawings. And just like, okay, cool. That's true. Carrion then tries to reassure Hayden that Saris was perfectly fine when they left her, to which Fisher was fed up with Hayden and did not want to deal with him. So I believe at this point, Fisher's going to take Carrion over Hayden. Like,
Yeah.
he'd rather be stuck with Carrion than Hayden. And I want to quote because what Fisher had said. So Fisher, being fed up, was like, wait, so your queen, the same queen who's been depriving you of water and starving you and murdering the people of your ward for generations, draws some pictures and tell you your sister's dead and you believed her. And he's like, great fucking gods, this is fucking perfect. And then he tells Carrion that he needed to fix it. And then I want to point this out because on page 294, I'm believe it was a mistake because Karen said to Hayden, like he's talking to Hayden, he says, Saris isn't an Ivalia anymore, Hayden. She accidentally opened a Fey portal and Fisher here came through in Zilvaren. Hayden wouldn't have known that Saris was in Ivalia for the one part. They never brought it up in this small little interaction. So now I do know that the author there was a few mistakes, but the author has also came out and said that some things aren't as what they seem. So is this one of those spots that aren't what it seems? Or is it actually a mistake and it was supposed to be that Saris was no longer in Zilvaren? And that Fisher had came through had came to Zilvaren from Ivalia. Because Hayden's not going to know where Saris was. Hayden thought Saris
Yeah.
was in the palace in the cells. So he's still he's talking to Hayden, trying to reassure him, and then he takes a wrong turn, telling Hayden that Fisher had tricked Saris into a bargain and then kidnapped him, thinking that he was Hayden himself. So at this point, Fisher was fed up with both of them. He takes over the conversation, grabs Hayden by his shirt, asking him if he wanted to see his sister, but he literally. Is this the part? No, this isn't the part where he scared him. It was in the tunnels that he scared him unconscious. Before they could do anything else, though, Hayden wanted to let Carrion know that Garcia, who was the one that took care of him as he was younger, her whole family were the ones that changed and took care of him, had passed away. So the three of them go to Garcia's farewell fire. There was like 30 people or more there saying their goodbyes and throwing things to feed the fire. Karen had tossed the book Fey Creatures and of the Galarian Mountains. I believe this is the book that he was telling Saris about. If we remember, back in Quicksilver, he talked about there was a book that he was read to as he was younger about the Fey, and that's how he knew. And Garcia was the one that his grandma was the one that would read it to him. So I'm assuming this is that book. And it was the only book that was linked to his people. So I think that kind of shocked Fisher. Sorry. It shocked Fisher that he would throw that in there. So then Carrion brings up that he should have been there, that they stay with them for 72 hours when they die. He just didn't know why they did it. So I have another quote here that Fisher states that Zilvarans also do it. Or Zilvarans do it for the same reason that Ivalians do it, or Fae, at least. You sit with your loved ones to make sure they don't rise. After 3 days, the chance of them transitioning ends. The dead stay dead. And then he states that for us, it's a practical safeguard. It must have become tradition here. And this kind of confuses Hayden, but Fisher just tells him, hey, we'll talk about this later. Because he didn't know what the transitioning meant.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, I didn't realize I had a lot more quotes. Okay. All three of the men stay there for an hour. At that time, Carrion's starting to lose it. His knees buckle. And I love that Fisher stepped up this time and hugged Carrion. Did not let him go, made him get it out of his system because he knew that's exactly what Saris would have done. So I liked that. Like, he put everything behind him, even though he has nothing to worry about carrying, but he was the better person and did that. Okay, so here's the part where I got kind of confused. Okay, after they left, they're traveling underneath the tunnels in the third ward. The whole time, Hayden's complaining how it stinks and that he can't see and how there are rats down there, to the point that Fisher got so fed up with Hayden, that when he got after him, he scared him unconscious, but it does not last very long. I do love that when they got to the opening they needed to get, Fisher realizes that Carrion did not, in fact, need helped up through the little hole. And this is where I wanted to quote, because Carrion stated, he talks about how people treat him.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "It's very simple, Fisher. If you treat me like I'm the court jester, I'll be the court jester. If I'm the laughing stock or the drunk or the idiot, then you're not thinking about who I really am, are you? I survived here for over 1,000 years. Do you really think I'd have been able to do that if I couldn't pull myself out of a fucking hole? If at any point you underestimate me, then I'd say that was your mistake rather than mine. Wouldn't you?" Which he has a point, and
Hmm.
Fisher should have realized that, he pointed out the little small magic of him opening the lock on when they were going to his little hideout for his silver or his little bank. So he should have kind of put two and two together, Fish or Carrion's been here the whole time. I'm sure he's learned to do things. So they're on the streets of the third, and there were posters on the wall. Now, these posters stated dangers, enemies of the crown, wanted for unauthorized magic use, murder, theft, intent to incite violence. Harboring these criminals is an offense punishable by death. Remember, magic is a disease. Keep Zilvaren safe. But this time, Fisher was not the only one drawn on the poster. Carrion was with him. People of the third were all around these posters. Some believed that magic wasn't real. Some people believed it was real. One person said that they knew something was wrong with the Swift Boy. Another person said it was a joke because Madra had lost touch with reality and convinced herself that magic was real. And then the ones around the poster, they didn't seem to want to train one of their own. They didn't know what they were supposed to do if they came across, especially Carrion, were they supposed to turn him in until they realized there was a reward. And it was a year's supply of
Water.
water for that person's household. But I wonder if she would have kept up with that. Like, are you really going to give them that year's worth of water?
Yeah.
Or is it just because you're still hiding in your palace, shaking in your boots?
Yep.
Because you know what's coming. When they get close to Carrion's apartment, there were guards already there waiting on them. So when they went back away, they're spotted. So as they're running, the Quicksilver, dun dun dun, was talking to Fisher in his eye, telling him which way to go and to come find us. Madra's guards are following them, firing arrows at them. Carrion's leading them to a more open area to fight. That way they're not cornered. And they end up in the square. Well, when they're in the square, they're not alone. There are girls in a line, men pricking these girls in the neck with something, and they're passing out. Excuse me. According to Carrion, it must have been cleansing day, and this news sets Fisher feral. And nothing is stopping him at this point at all. He had a plan to not cause a scene, but that blew out the window when he found out what was happening there in the square. So he tells Carrion to get Hayden out of harm's way. He then calls on his magic, and instead of shadows, they were knives. He had made knives, and they were made out of magic themselves. Or itself, sorry. And he was killing them right and left. The world around him was all crimson and death. He wasn't thinking. He wasn't like, nothing was stopping this guy because they hurt his mate. They brought her here and took away the most important decision for herself. So he was making them pay. And what set him off even more, it was there was a girl in front of line that he saw Cyrus in her because she was fighting back. And he's like, that's exactly what Cyrus would have had to done. That she would have fought back for them trying to take her choice away. A little bit later, it takes Carrion getting Fisher grounded to let him know, hey, they're all gone. We need to get out of here before more come. Hayden spoke up, letting them know, that he knows where they should go. And again, the Quicksilver starts speaking to him, letting him know to go the way they were going. And little did we know that there was a second pull of Quicksilver in Zilvaren. A massive one at that.
Which we find out at the very end of a fucking cliffhanger. I hate
I know.
cliffhangers.
Tell me about it. Fisher does note that his magic should have been gone, but it was ready to answer his call. There, he states that there was a mind-bending well of energy waiting for him. So he brings it forward, and his magic encompassed Zilvaren, allowing the shining banner in the north to fall into darkness for the first time in history.
And then we jump back to Saris. She has her book that Algat gave her, and there's a little excerpt at the top of the chapter that says, at the first stages of ascension, equilibrium must be found. Every acolyte has an affinity toward a certain path. Without the appropriate guidance and training, the path will claim the acolyte. They must marry the tria prima into one within themselves if they are to truly master their power. The enlightened alchemist walks all three paths, which is interesting to kind of see how this is going to play out for her. That's pretty, I feel like it's pretty coded right now. We haven't gotten like too much, but it's obviously going to play like a big part in things later on. So she's in the forge there at Amontreath. It's described as unlike any forge that she's been in, even though, like she's literally been in just a couple. And there's no fire in the forge because the Blood Corps is very firm on their view that fire does not belong behind the walls of Amontreath. There's just a small token of Quicksilver that's in the forge, and the book tells her that she should be able to connect with it, but she still isn't quite sure what that means. So then it speaks to her, and she takes a deep breath. She's trying to reach out to it. But whenever she tries to grab onto it, it like slips away, kind of like a bar of soap would, which I think is funny. Like it's like slippery. It comes out of her hands. And then she curses and it calls her a filthy mouth. Like it tells her she's got a filthy mouth and she's so ill-tempered. So she tosses a ring into the crucible, or tosses a crucible. I don't know. It's worded something like that. And it's impure, so she has to add extra silver to it. And she's doing her thing, and the quicksilver forms a snake-like thread that winds around the band of the ring, and it mimics the little tiny vines that are engraved on the band of the ring itself. So she asks if the quicksilver will bind with it, and it wants a memory. This is any memory will do, and without thinking, she immediately thinks of her mother. The day that our mother was murdered in the street, and the Quicksilver is very quick to take those memories, so she catches it in time and is like, no, don't take that one. Like, I need that one. She can't be without that memory because that helped shape her to be more of the person that she is, witnessing that, and she'd essentially lose a part of herself if that memory is taken. So she offers another one of her telling Hayden something, and mid-thought, she just forgets what happened. Like, she has no idea. She doesn't remember. And they told her that they made a pretty relic, and to seal it, give them the blood. So she pricks her finger, and the drop of blood falls to the bottom, and it makes a hissing sound. And the Quicksilver hums and sings quietly to itself as it's absorbing the blood. So next thing she knows, she turns around, and the fucking Hazrax is in the forge with her, surprises the shit out of her. She thinks that he's bigger and taller than she remembered, and he could like tell that she was afraid. And he tells her, you don't need to be, like, everything is fine. And he calls her Child Queen, which I think is not really funny, but it's going to be like, I mean, she's like a baby, essentially, becoming
compared
a queen.
Compared to everybody else's age, then yeah.
Yeah. He asks if she's surprised that the Quicksilver still is accepting her blood. She says yes. And he asks if it was the first thing that she had made in her new body. And she says that she made stuff for her friends and her brother, and says that this one kind of felt reluctant. I can't say that word. So the Hazarak picks up the ring and it's almost like it's burning him, like it's like sizzling on him. And he knows that she is surprised that he left the Hall of Tears after hearing that he never does. And she's also surprised by like the fact that he's speaking to her the way that he is, by his appearance. And she asks him if he's inside her head, to which he says, like, with as old as I am, I don't need to steal information. The power of deduction proves sufficient enough. And he wants to observe the rules of etiquette, have an exchange before they talk business, which I like that. He kind of like, he's not like a down to business type of person. Like, I'm going to hold a conversation with you before I decide to ask you for what I want right now.
The small talk.
Yeah. So what do you want to exchange? Like, what do you want to fucking talk about? And he mentions the book on the table, which I like that he, immediately took kind of interest into that, give her some guidance. And he tells her that there used to be many of those books, but now there's just the one. And he says that he's an observer, a collector of information. It's his duty to read the books, and he's read that one many times. So she asks, do you understand it? Do you understand who and what I am? And I can't remember. He states that I'm not gifted with the sight as some beings of this realm appear to be. I see avenues, pathways, lights. I see possibilities. And he says that blood magic is a crude thing. And so she's like, I don't know anything about blood magic. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And, he's like, actually, you do. Quicksilver's greedy, and you give it what it desires. Songs, jokes, memories. Fisher wants her to create those thousands of relics, and she bargains for each one. She shaves off a piece of herself every time she does that. And
how many memories? How many of them was going to want memories? She's not
exactly.
going to have anything left.
And that is one thing that he brings up. She's like, I'm doing what it needs to be done. Like, I'm doing what's best to save these people. And he says, what needs to be done? What needs to be done? Do those runes on your hands need to be sealed? Does your mate need to be wary of new faces? Do you need to create thousands of relics so that you can whisk the weak and the small away from this place? Does the black rot spreading throughout this land need to be stopped? Tell me. I saw the low blood carrying the message to your chamber earlier this evening. How many have fallen to the infected now? How much land has been lost? Like, he even, like, just before that, he also mentions, like, how will you know exactly what it is that you've forgotten, what you've lost when your mind is riddled and full of holes? Like, she's gonna lose herself. She's not gonna have anything left. She's gonna run out of memories, and then she's gonna have to dip into, like, current memories, and she's just not gonna have anything left. And that's one of the things that I think drove the alchemists crazy.
Yes, that's what I was just getting ready to bring up.
Like, because maybe they didn't know, and they were doing the same thing that she did because they didn't have books like this. If they were destroyed, like, who's to say they had access to them when they were around more before they were executed and, gotten rid of and stuff like that. Like, and that's what helped drive them to madness.
Because they couldn't figure out what's missing. They knew something was missing. They couldn't figure out what was missing.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Yep. Up at this point, they've now lost 1,976 people to death. There are 2,409 people that have been infected, and they've lost 8,162 hectares of landmass to the infection. And she tells him that she doesn't have much time. She needs to get busy, basically. And he takes her back to the conversation about the blood, saying that blood magic is artless. It requires no true skill. And he asks if she intends to trade every last drop of blood you have to make your precious relics, or do you have another plan that will not require you to exsanguinate, like bleed yourself dry. And she knows that she can't keep bartering away her blood, making the deals. And during the conversation, she realizes that she needs to learn how to unlock the Quicksilver rune. And he tells her that it would be a formidable weapon if it doesn't kill her before she gets the chance to seal it. Again, talking about sealing the runes on her hands. And like, she has no idea still how to fucking do that. And she says that the book is supposed to teach her how to make, and it says compact with the Quicksilver, and I'm wondering if it's supposed to say contact, like making contact with the Quicksilver. So I think that is maybe a typo error. But it only teaches her how to hear it and how to communicate with it, and she obviously already knows how to do that. She already knows how to command it to still. She knows she can make it awaken and liquefy. Like, she can speak to it to get it to bind and barter with it. And he's also a very good player on words. Like, he can't, like, and he tells her, like, he can't reveal truths that need to be discovered, but he tries to be wise and, you know, say that he can't, or he tries to say wise shit that he can't be forthcoming about, to just say, and she tells him enough to spit it out. Whatever you're trying to say, just fucking tells me. And that's when he tells her, you know, I can't be the one to tell you things that need to be revealed. Like, you need to find this out for yourself. And so she gets pissed and she's like, okay, you gotta go. Like, we're done. But he's like, I can't leave. I got to reveal to you the real reason why I'm here. Like, now it's time to get down to business and discuss. And he tells her, you know, I'm a private individual. I haven't sworn to the court. I'm just like fully, like, I struck a deal with Malcolm. I was allowed to observe him and was permitted one favor a year for every year that he remained there. So she's like, okay, what kind of favor? That was up to the king. Like, if it was within the power, he made it happen. And she asks what his powers are. Like, what are you? And he tells her that his is the power to put out the sun, perhaps, to untether gravity. So that leaves her kind of speechless. And he's lifting up the crucible off the table as it, like, the ring and stuff, as it's like hovering in the air. It's just like spinning. And he tells her what he is, no one really knows anymore. His body is just a vessel, and his mind is very old. It can be in many places at once, and he can see through the eyes of others from time to time, and that they are very useful skills to have. At this point, she's not paying attention to anything that he's saying because she's starting to hover in the air. Like, he's changing gravity and shit right now. Her boots have left the ground. You know, she panics. She tells him to stop. He tells her he's capable of many things, and she just needs to know how to ask the right questions. And she asks if he came there to strike a deal just like he did with Malcolm, now that Malcolm is dead. And he says he would like to make the same deal with her. And she's like, well, what if I refuse? And he's like, I have to be here. Like, I need to remain here. I need to make a deal. And I want to know why he's so adamant that he has to be there. Like, is there a bigger reason as to why he's there? And, like, he can't be forthcoming about it? Like, he just knows, like, this is where I'm supposed to be. Like, is something going to happen that he needs to be there to help? Like, you know, does he know shit like Fisher's mom did? Without, like he sees things. He can be in many places at once. Like his mind, he sees through people. Like, what does he know that nobody else knows?
Right.
So she gives in. She says that there will be one favor a year in exchange for permission to stay, but she wants the opportunity to renew that bargain every year and does not want to be locked into an agreement with her until the day that she dies. He agrees and he leaves. As the relic is still spinning in the air, she reaches out to catch it. As it stops spinning, it hits her hand like a rock. The moment that it touches her skin, blinding white flares behind her eyes and she's in pain. It's everywhere in her hands, her eyes. She can't see, she can't breathe. At this point, she's afraid she's gonna destroy Amentreth and just knows that she needs to run. That's where we leave Cyrus's freaking point of view. Like, that's
Can we point out too that he also
good.
kept saying that blood magic, like he just kept bringing up blood magic and how bad it is, and that's what exactly kind of what she was doing because it wanted drops of her blood.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
That's not gonna be the
if
only
you
time we.
hear things about witches and stuff like that, like blood magic is like the bad of the bad, and black magic, blood magic, like it's bad shit. So I would imagine that it's pretty equal to all of that. And I don't know. Hopefully she figures something out before something gets way too bad.
Right.
Um so now we are back at Zilvaren with Fisher and Carrion. They are running through the city as chaos is spreading. Carrion is leading the charge to wherever their destination is. Um, Fisher got rid of his glamour at some point during his battle with the guards and stuff. So he's back in his full Fae look. He feels great being in his own skin. And like Kisher, oh my gosh. I've looked at Carrion and the word Fisher at the same time. Like, oh gosh. Um, Carrion is like, take this right, let's go this way. And Fisher notices that there is a pale green glow on the even light torches. Like, he points out that they have even light there, and they should not have like anything like that there in Zilvaren. Like, that should be impossible for them to have even light there. And I want to know, like, kind of like, what's the significance of that? Like, what the reason is for it. And I'm hoping that, like, there is a bigger part to play with that maybe they can use. Like, well, okay,
That's
thinking
what
of it that way.
Amentreth uses.
Exactly. So there is magic there. So that's got to be how Fisher can still tap into his magic because there's not supposed to be magic there. So there is somewhere
Well,
that they can tap into.
if we go back, let me see here. Fully pointed out when he was kind of like undermining Cyrus. He states. mm, Let me see here. Okay, because she states that you don't need to talk to me like I'm stupid. Magic hasn't existed in Zilvaren for a very, very long time. How am I supposed to know any of this? To which he states, you cannot eradicate magic from a city. Once it takes root within a community, it never leaves. It will find a way to thrive one way or another. You just didn't care to look for it, like within yourself, for example. So fully states that there's still going to be magic there in Zilvaren, whether it hasn't been there for a long time or not. It's still going to be there.
Well, it seems pretty active if Fisher was able to really like more
See,
active than what?
but it kind of makes sense if Madge's pushing, hey, magic isn't real and all this. Nobody's gonna go looking for it. Like
Yeah.
they're not gonna know what to look for. They're not going to.
Um, so they reach their destination, uh, but they need to bleh. So they get to where they need to be. Fisher has to like bust in the door. Carrion's like, no, you just need to finesse it. Um, by this point, his shadows are dissipating, and the Quicksilver is still urging him to find it, saying to go inside. Which at that point, when I was listening to that, I'm like, that's suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird. Because, like, why are you telling them to go inside this? And I had maybe thought that Elroy maybe had a little bit, in the forge and stuff, like
Not a
little
whole.
bit of quicksilver. Not a whole dangerous amount, but like,
Not a
just a
pool.
little speck, like, yeah, come get me. And, Fisher enters the door, and next thing you know, he's got fucking pain radiating in his head. Something has attacked him. He whips around, he's ready to defend himself, and Carrion's like, no, 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 no. Like, please, don't hurt him. It's just Elroy defending his forge. They kind of broke in. And, he's telling Carrion that him and Hayden can stay, but Fisher, he's got to go. He knows what Fisher is, what trouble is chasing him. And Hayden mentions how Fisher said, Saris is alive, which Elroy doesn't doubt. It's Saris. Like, he's like, I got no doubt about that. And Carrion is telling him, like, he's not a rebel, to which Elroy is just like, I know that. Like, I can see that plain as day. He's a Fey warrior. He's as subtle as a sledgehammer. Like, I know
Mhm.
exactly what he is. And he tells them that the shadows he cast could have gotten them all killed. And of course, Fisher is like, well, maybe that would have been for the fucking best because then I could just go home. I wouldn't have to be fucking dealing with all of this bullshit. And Carrion's like, oh, he doesn't mean that. The heat just makes him irritated. Okay, buddy. If that's what you want, why you want to spew today, then I guess
Right.
that's what we're going with. And, Hayden, he's peeking outside. There's guards everywhere. He's like, we can't leave yet. Elroy's like, no, you're not going anywhere. Saris would string me up alive if she found out that I let you leave with Fisher. And Fisher bares his teeth at Elroy. He's like, who the fuck do you think sent me? And Carrion steps in like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, no, we're done. I've had enough of this. I've been stung by millions of scorpions the last few days. That we've been chased repeatedly. We've killed a raving lunatic. And I just watched someone who cared for me go up in flames. Like, he's
Done.
past the fucking bullshit. Like, yeah. And Elroy tells him, like, I was sorry to hear about Gracia. And he's like,
Is it
fine, she was
Gracia? I thought
old.
it was
It's
Garcia.
Gracia. No, it's
I thought it
Gracia.
was. I got the
I
letters
didn't even catch
backwards.
that. I didn't even catch
I was
that.
calling her Garcia.
I didn't even catch that. My bad. Um,
Oops.
he Carrion's like, it's fine. She was old, he's just upset that he wasn't there to say goodbye to her, thank her for everything that she had done for him to take care of him and all of that. And Elroy backs off a little bit. Hayden says that Hayden should have a choice in deciding if he wants to go with them, to which he does. He wants to see his sister. Like, he has to see her. So Carrion tells them everything. Guards are patrolling through the third, and Fisher is watching Elroy. He's pacing back and forth through the forge. He notices how Saris moves like him, handles objects like him, and he doesn't doubt that. It's not really how I want to say that, but He kind of gets it because, Elroy taught her everything about being in a forge. Like, he trained her to do everything. Um, but he's calm. Like, nothing that Carrion is saying to Hayden is phasing Elroy one fucking bit. And this is kind of where I felt like I picked up on the possibility, like, where the idea come from, that he could be Finrin. Because, that was his dad's name, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Finran, Finron.
Well, okay.
Fin something.
Okay, because I was like, wait a second, it's not a fourth wing thing, is it? Because I can't remember what dude's dad's name was in that. So I'm like, oh my god, am I mixing up the names? So Fisher's dad, like the idea that he is Fisher's dad, I feel like this is where it could start because he acts as if like he just knew all about this. And so Fisher calls him out, like, how long have you known about all this? And because he immediately was like, he's a Fey warrior. And he was like, people still tell stories. Like, they talk about it all the time. Like, it's no big deal.
You think you got it wrong because Zayden's dad's name is Finn. Finn Ryerson. I did
Okay,
that
yeah.
earlier when I mentioned, like, I just said Fisher's dad because I'm like, when I was doing my notes, I'm like, okay, Finran. I'm like, wait a minute, that sounds wrong. I didn't want to put the wrong name. No, it's right. It's similar to Zayden's dad's name.
Okay, yeah. I just want to make sure I wasn't like mixing them up.
No, we're good.
Um, So yeah, he's like, people tell stories. Like it's still talked about, blah blah blah. Fisher immediately calls bullshit. And Elroy's like, I've always known about all of them. I've known about Carrion, to which Carrion gets pissed. And he's like, I could have had someone to talk to aside from Gracia. Like, I'm thankful that I had one person who knew about me to talk to, he said, but it would have been so much better if I would have had a second person to be able to go to. And Elroy says that there were rules, so he couldn't say anything. Don't tell Carrion about the Fae. Don't say this about the Fae. Don't do that. Don't, anything like that. All of this is going on, and Fisher is starting to feel really weird. He's hot. He can feel his heartbeat beating all over his body. He kind of thinks maybe it's because they're in the forge. The forge is hot, but he's like, he knows. Like, that's not the reason at all that anything like that is happening. Carrion asks, who said you couldn't say anything? And we find out that just like Gracia's family was sworn to protect Carrion, Elroy's family was sworn to keep their secret about knowing about the Fae, that all of it was true, and, it
Making
wasn't just stories.
weapons.
So it was his father before him, so on and so forth. They all had a job to do to protect all of this. And, they're like going back and forth, and Elroy's like, I can just show you. And he pulls back a curtain to reveal a hidden door that he has to use his blood magic, essentially, to open. And Carrion, he still ran. He's just fucking pissed about the whole thing. And, he's just blah, blah, blah. And Elroy's leading them downstairs that are never ending, and Fisher notices that the walls are not made of sand. They're actually made of granite. And I think Hayden is the one who asked, like, how many steps does it take to get down there? And there's 1,223 steps. They get to the bottom, and there's a super large amount of metal goods. There's fucking treasures, like keys. There's so much shit down there. And, Elroy, like, Fisher's trying to take in all of the shit that's hidden down there. Doesn't realize that Elroy has started lighting torches until there's enough light in there that they see the giant pool of quicksilver smack dab in the middle. that you can like step down into and everything. Like there's steps leading down to it. And it's begging Fisher to come join them. Like come to us, like you found us, blah blah blah. Hayden asks what that is, and Elroy tells him it's a very dangerous amount of quicksilver. And that's where we fucking leave off the week.
I do want to note that
We
Fisher did also
really
know.
way of deciding how many chapters we're going to talk about every week because
I
I'm
know, I
seriously,
know.
the last 3 episodes have been a fucking cliffhanger. Like,
Cliffhanger.
guards are right outside their fucking door. We just found a quicksilver pool. What
Could
else
you
could go
imagine?
wrong? Like, what? Like,
Because
what could happen next?
could you imagine? Because Elroy stated that there's like over 1,000 steps, and to keep taking that back and forth, the quicksilver all down there every time he found some to keep it hidden. But also, can we point out that Fisher had noted that it was strange that the Quicksilver was this talkative since Taylena and Ishbal had pulled out most of it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I wonder what that's all about. Like,
I don't know. Oh, anyways, that's all I got.
big cliffhanger. Like a lot's happened, but not a lot's happened.
No, I
And yes,
am like we are like halfway through and I feel like we have gotten some information,
but
but I want the fucking action. Like give me my shit now.
we can't forget though, this is a trilogy. We can't give away too much in the second book because we still have a third book coming. So we
And a
can't,
lot of times the second
unless they're
book
bringing a
is
new enemy.
building or informational
Information
and
dump. It's like a big information dump. And that's kind of what we're getting right now. With a side piece of action. Pretty much.
yep.
But things are heating up. Things are starting to heat up. We now have Hayden and we've met Elroy now. Who seems to not like Kingfisher at all. I did not expect him to know about the Fae. And he did. So I wonder though, like, he's got to know something was up with Cyrus then, if he knows about Fae.
Maybe he picked up on it and that's why he was like, I'll fucking take you in. And he, taught her everything. Maybe he'd have to know signs to look for or notice
Yeah.
secrets and stuff like
Yeah.
he does.
We just don't know what all he was told because they're his family secrets. So, he's not allowed to state any of that. Um, but it kind of does make sense, if that's why he chose to put her in the forge. Madra, can we just say she's about to flip her shit some more? She's panicking. She is full-blown panicking, hiding in her palace because she knows she's going to be next if Fisher comes after her. Or Cyrus, if Cyrus comes back coming after her. But can we just say also that the chaos has begun? Chaos has begun from it all. And hopefully something good happens in the next 5 chapters. I want a good action section, not just filler. I want a good action section. So join us next week where we go over the next 5 chapters and see if they use this newly found Quicksilver pool to head home.